Okay, so here we are working on our Space Invaders game. We made a lot of progress so far. We've got the pretty kind of the basic foundation of the game. We've got sort of a game loop going on here, and then we have some different states. We have the waiting to start, we have the current game, and then we have a game over state. And so we need to kind of implement the game over state, but we've got like a load screen. And so if we come to here, you can see that we'll start over. That we've got our load screen here. We press a button to start, and it starts going. And then you'll see that if we press the this middle button to start, it will actually cause it to like fire off the weapon right at the beginning, which we maybe don't want. So we can look at a way to get around that. And then so here though, we're going to handle the game over state, keep track of the score, as well as maybe look at like implementing like levels or something like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and start by fixing that issue where it fires as soon as we start. So we set the game state to game on, we set the current score, and what we're going to do is we're going to clear the display, I think. And so that will indicate, so this is going to go blank. So when we register an input while we're waiting to start, if we register that input, we're going to change the game state and we're going to clear the display, and we're going to add a short delay here. And what that will do, that will take care of the issue where it was firing the bullet right when we started the game, because this will give just a little bit of time to finish that button press. Okay, so testing this, I've actually gone ahead and changed this to 100 for the timing purposes, but so now if I press this button, it'll start the game without registering that button press. And that kind of solves the issue that we were running into there. Okay, so up next is now we want to handle the collision. So basically, if the aliens get into the bottom of the screen, or if they crash into the spaceship, then that we should register a game over. So let's go ahead and handle those states now. Let me change this back to 100. Okay, so in our game loop, let's come to our game loop. So probably we have the move loop. So in our move loop, we move the alien fleet, and we check to see if we're at the bottom, right? If at bottom. Okay, so we don't actually need this. Okay, we'll get rid of that variable. It's giving us warnings. But what we can do is we'll say if so we're going to move the fleet vertically down. And then this is going to return true if we hit the bottom. And then if we hit the bottom, we'll set the game state to game over. Okay? And so what will happen here is essentially it keeps moving it down. When it gets to the bottom, it's going to register as a game over. Okay, so let's go ahead and test that. Okay, so for testing purposes, I actually increase the speed of the alien fleet so it would hit the ground faster. And I also added a debug statement here in the move alien fleet to print game over when there's a game over, so we could check to see if it was registering. And you can see here, they're marching down. We should get the game over here state, but we don't. And so this is going to be an issue with our game object class, where with the move vertically is not registering right in the bottom. So if we come back to here for the game object class, we have our move vertically function. Okay, and so it's because of this. So really this should be a greater than or equal to. So like if basically we're saying if it's equal to the screen height, if we're at the very bottom, when really it should be greater than or equal to. So if we pass it, and then same thing here will make this less than. I think I changed it before, but I might have lost it. Oops. So less equal to 0, greater equal to that, and that will solve that issue where it was hitting the bottom and not registering. Okay, so we made that change. It still did not solve the problem, and so the next thing we need to do is, so we had actually done an override of the, not an override, but we had done a different version of this function where we moved the entire, basically because we only have the one, and so to move the fleet, we move just the alien in the top left. And then we calculate the lower edge, and then we're comparing to see if the lower edge is greater than the screen height. and returning true there. And so something is wrong with this calculation here. And so let's take a look at this and see what we can accomplish there. So I printed a debug statement here to see if we could come up with the issue, and it's right here in this function. I'm doing the calculation based on the x position rather than the y position, and this is why it's not registering that we're hitting the edge. And so now that we fix that, we make sure that this shows y position instead of x position in our move fleet vertically function. That should solve our issue. And there we go, registered a game over. It's a little bit low still, right? So, let me think about that. I think it's okay. So it just does the movement. Yeah, I think we're just going to have to work with that. Maybe what we could do is this. If we do hit the vertical, if we do hit the lower edge, what we're going to do is we'll move it back up. So it doesn't show like as if it's going off the screen there. We'll see if that's better. And there we go. So game over. So we should be registering a game over state. And so let's go ahead and go back to VS Code here. So in addition to changing the logic to game object, we're fixing this lower edge logic to change this to a y position, because that was just a bug there. We had the wrong variable. Okay. And so now we're entering that game object state, but what we need to do is we need to actually display the game object, the game over. And so what we'll do is we have a function to render the game over screen. So what we'll do is we're going to make one more function that will put us in the game over state. And so we'll say void go to or end game. Okay? And so now we're going to take this function I'll put down here at the bottom. So end game, and what we'll say is set the game state to game over, and then we will render game over screen. Okay, and so now anytime the game is ended, which can happen from a couple places, we'll do both those two things. And so now here, instead of saying game state is equal to game over, we're going to say end game, and that should put up the game over screen. Okay, and so let's give that a shot. Okay, so this worked kind of, and you'll see here that we have one more issue. So it will flash the game over screen once, and then it will jump right back to the render here. And so the reason why is because the move loop comes before the render loop. And so what we need to do is we have to say if game state equals game on, then we'll call the render loop. And so this will prevent us from rendering over our our screen there. And the other thing we want to do is we would like to pull for input here as well in the game over state, so we could start a new game. And so we'll pull for input, and when we receive it, we're going to go to, let's say, waiting to start. Okay. And then we'll display our load screen. Okay, so we run this. And take a while to compile this time. So we start the game. We'll shoot some aliens here. And then game over. Got our score. Press button to continue. Press a button. Interesting. Okay, so we saw two issues there. Do you see that it when we start a new game, first of all, it jumped right through this waiting to start thing. And so we're going to add a delay here of about 500. So we see it for at least half a second. But the other issue is that when that game started, the aliens were already at the bottom. So we need to have a function to reset game. And so let's make a reset game function. Reset game. Okay, so how we're going to do this, we're going to take this reset game function and we'll put it just right here. And so when we reset the game, we need to do a couple things, right? So remove, so set all bullets to inactive. We need to set all aliens to active. We need to reset the alien position, and we need to reset the spaceship position. So these are things that we should do at the start of the score each game. Then we'll set the score to 0. And these would be just the steps involved in resetting, right? And so we're going to grab from here the current score equals 0. We'll put that right there. And instead we'll just call reset game. Okay. Then we reset the game, so we need to set all the bolts to inactive. And so we'll just loop through those. And we'll set these to false. Okay. And then we will alien fleet. I think it's capital F, right? This is where it'd be helpful to VS Code again. So let's go alien fleet. So we have reset aliens. Okay, so we're going to say alien fleet dot reset aliens, and then we'll set the position. What do we have them start at? 4 and 10. Okay, so we'll set that back to 4 and 10. And then let's see, what are the functions for that? So we have get X and Y position. Here we go. Just set X position, set Y position. So set X position and set Y position. This should be at 4. So it resets the position of 4 and 10. And then we should also do this with our spaceship. And so our spaceship started at a position of what? Where was it? Right here. So it started at 10 and 55. So I'll put it back to 10 and 55. 10 and 55. And we should also reset the speeds, just in case we had to update those for any reason. So I'm going to actually change this back to 1 because I had those set for 5 as testing. Alright. And we'll put that right here. Okay? And that will allow us to reset the game on the game over. And so we run it. And so here we can fly around. Make this go a little faster. Okay, so here we have our start screen. We run our game happens. They hit the bottom, so we go to game over. we press this button, we go back to the start, we press it again, and we have a new game here. So that's what we wanted to do. And something else we can do here is we can get rid of these lines right there. And because now we take care of what we call reset game. So when reset game sets all the kind of like initial conditions. And so I had increased those to 5 and 10. I'm going to change them back to 1 now. And so the last thing I'm going to do here is detect the collision with the spaceship. Okay. Okay, so here we are in our main file again. We want to go to our move spaceship function. And after we move it, we'll check for that collision. And so check for collision. And so we're going to do alien fleet dot collides with. Let's see, how do we do it with the bullets? So we checked the bullet collisions. We did collides with, okay, yeah, so we want to do the collides with the alien function. Dot collides with alien, and we're going to put our spaceship. Okay, and actually, instead of a semicolon, let's say if we're going to say game, what was our function? End game. So we're going to say end game. Okay, and so now if we run it again, when it detects that collision with the spaceship, it will end. Okay, so let's go ahead and try this out. So we can play our game, right? This is going to take a minute here. So the next thing we're going to do while this is happening is we want to do the be able to set the score. And so probably want to put the score in the top left here. And every time we eliminate an alien, we should probably increase our score. And so that's kind of what I want to think about next. And so we're going to, where we check the bullet collision is where we're going to keep track of the score. Let me actually speed up. Okay, so here we see they're going to crash in the spaceship, register a hit. So that worked. So let me change this back to 1 and 1. Okay, and so now from here, the next step is we need to handle that score. And so let's go back to VS Code. Okay, and so here now we'll go to, we have the check bullet collisions. So in the case of a collision, we're just going to count up the score. And so I think we created a variable called current, current score, plus plus, and then we'll come up to here, and we will, in our render loop, we should look at rendering that score. So clear display, draw aliens, draw bullets, and then we'll say draw score. Okay. So let's come to the top and add that function prototype. Okay, and we're just going to print it at 0, 0. So we're going to say okay, so I'll just make this at the bottom here. Void draw score. And we want to use, a text size of 1. We want to set the cursor to 0, 0. And then we're just going to do display.print current score. Okay, and so let's see if that works. Okay, so now we can play our game. So we start the game, we can go around, we got our score rendered there at the top. We fire the weapon, and you can see our score changing as we hit them. And then if we miss, it doesn't add to the score, right? But if we hit one, there we go. Okay? And then so when the game is ended, it will put that score on the screen. And so I'm going to pause it so we can wait for the game to end. Alright, so we got game over. It displays our score on the screen. We go to the start screen. We start over with a score of 0 again. Okay, so we've made some good progress here. We'll wrap this up now, and then we basically will have kind of one more gameplay video here where we'll kind of add in the second level portion, or like multiple levels, where it moves to the next level, and then probably like speeding them up. And then from there we'll be handling the sounds. Okay?